So I'm going to tell you all an interesting story, but before we begin, I've actually got a newspaper article, and Harry, you're going to look after that for me. Place it somewhere that I can't get to it, or just hold on to it. Actually, no, you're going to need your hand, so place it on the table for a second. It was a really interesting story that I stumbled across. So it happened in the late 80s, and it was a series of disappearances. And these disappearances ended up being called the Polaroid disappearances. That's because something really strange happened in that these Polaroids of the people who were taken were discovered. So, for example, Jenny, if you were to go missing tomorrow, it's not me, a Polaroid would be left of you in place of you. Now, the even stranger thing is the majority of these people ended up returning, but none of them had a memory of where they'd been or what had happened to them. Everyone returned except one person. We'll get onto that in a minute. These are some of the Polaroids that were actually kept of them. So these were under an auction that happened last year, and it was quite a macabre auction. It was an auction of sort of serial killer things that had happened over the years and ghost story things and like that, stuff like that. So I won't actually show you all of them at the moment, but I do want to start off at a random position. So Andy, you're going to take them. And we're going to start with your name, since this is all about names. So what I want you to do is to take them, keep them face down, and spell out your name one letter at a time with the picture to the bottom. Good. Now turn them to face yourself.
Yeah.
And look at whoever's on the face.
Yeah.
Good. Can you remember who that person is?
Yeah.
Good. Now what I want you to do is to spell that person's name one letter at a time to the back. Pass them over to Harry. Mm-hmm. Harry, whoever that is on the face, can you remember that person for me?
Yeah.
Remember as much detail as you can. Remember whether it's male, female, what they look like, what they're wearing, the environment around them, stuff like that. Good. Okay. And can you spell that person's name one letter to the back for each letter?
Mm-hmm. Happy.
Good. And then pass them over to Jenny. Mm-hmm. Jenny, can you look at whoever that person is? Can you remember the name and whoever in the picture is? Now, I should have also said there may have been 2 or 3 people in the images. Whoever looks like the person, that's all fine, okay? Can you hold them face down for me, Jenny? Good. I'm going to take them here. Can you place your hand out for me? Good. I'm going to leave your one on the palm of your hand for a second. Now, you might not have seen all of these, but we can actually have a look at some of them. Now, don't indicate who it was that you were looking at, but I'll actually leave them all sort of here for you to look over. Good. Now, the interesting thing was there are 3 people of significance in this story. The first one was Luke. Who was it that you saw?
Yeah, Luke.
It was Luke. That's really strange. See, Luke was the witness. He was the only person that had an idea of who had done this, the only person that had some sort of memory. And they said that apparently this was a woman that had done this thing, not a man, which was quite strange anyway. And he gave a name as well, but she was never found. She was never ever found. In fact, this person that he had dreamt up wasn't a person at all. It wasn't a thing. The other person of significance was George. See, George is the one that was never found. And the interesting thing about George was they discovered later on that the person who was taking these people, it was like a cult. And what they were doing is they were putting them through some sort of ritual to find out whether God had accepted them or the devil had accepted them. If God had accepted them, they'd put them back into society. If the devil had accepted them, then they were murdered and taken away. Who did you think of? It's George. Now, it's interesting that you landed on George because I gave you the newspaper article at the beginning. Can you open it up? That was a newspaper clipping from the time that came with these photos. That's why it was interesting. Turn to the other side. Can you see there's one person on that? The one person that didn't return was George. And the really interesting thing about this whole thing is they said that this woman, Luke said that this woman was called Meredith and that she was there, but it turns out that it wasn't real. She didn't exist. He must have just dreamt it up. Who was it that you saw, Jenny?
Meredith.
But Meredith wasn't real. She was just dreamt up. She didn't exist. Is that who you saw in your photo?
Yes.
Have a look. There was no one there called Meredith.
You're seeing things, that is scary.
And that's the story of the Polaroid disappearance.
That is spooky.